Hello everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to the class once again. We are discussing the topic food as a substrate for microorganisms from paper 11 Food and Industrial Microbiology. Food is a good substrate for microorganisms because whatever is food for us, so is the food for microorganisms also. Microorganisms interact with the food in different ways. Some of the interactions are beneficial while some of the interactions are harmful. These interactions of microorganisms in the food depend on various factors because in all the foods, all types of microorganisms will not be able to grow. There are various characteristics of the food as well as the storage environment that determine what will grow in the food and what will not grow in the food. These factors are broadly categorized into two groups. Some of the factors are called as intrinsic factors and some are called as extrinsic factors. Intrinsic factors are the factors that are associated with the food, that is inherent characteristics of the food, which affect the growth of microorganisms in the food. These intrinsic factors include pH, moisture content, oxidation reduction potential, nutrient content, inhibitory substances, etc. These intrinsic factors we are discussing in some details. In the last video, we discussed two of the intrinsic factors. One was pH and the another was moisture content, that is available water or AW. Now we will discuss the remaining intrinsic factors which determine food as a substrate for microorganisms. The next factor that we will discuss is oxidation reduction potential of the food. Oxidation reduction potential of a substrate is defined as the ease with which the substrate loses or gains the electrons. That means oxidation reduction potential of a food will depend on the total composition of the food and the ease with which this food will donate the electrons or will gain the electrons. The OR potential of the food is determined by four things. One is the characteristics oxidation reduction potential of the food. Second is the Poisson capacity. Third is the oxygen tension of the atmosphere surrounding the food. Fourth is access of the oxygen to the food. I will repeat once again. There are four factors that determine the total OR potential of the food. One is the characteristic OR potential of the food. Second is the Poisson capacity. Now what is Poisson capacity? It is the resistance to the change in OR potential of the food. Means Poisson capacity is the capacity of the food to resist change in oxidation reduction potential. The third is oxidation tension of the atmosphere around the food. And the fourth is access that the atmosphere has to the food. There are different types of microorganisms based on their oxygen requirements. Different microorganisms require different OR potential for their growth. The physiological groups of microorganisms depending on the oxygen requirement are aerobic organisms or aerobes, anaerobic organisms or anaerobes, microaerophilic organisms or microaerophiles, and facultative organisms. Aerobic organisms require oxygen for their growth. Therefore, for their growth, they require oxidized environment. For example, bacillus. Anaerobic organisms do not require oxygen for their growth. In fact, oxygen is toxic for growth of some anaerobic organisms. They require reduced environment for their growth. For example, Clostridium. Microaerophilic organisms, also known as microaerophiles, these require oxygen but at a very low concentration. That means they require oxygen but at low oxygen tension. They require the environment that is slightly reduced. The example of microaerophiles, Lactobacillus. And facultative organisms are the organisms that will do with or without oxygen. Means if oxygen is available, they will grow aerobically, and if oxygen is not available, they will grow anaerobically. Example of this is E. coli. So aerobic anaerobic, microaerophilic and facultative are the four categories of organisms depending on their oxygen requirement. The OR potential is measured in millivolts and it is designated as EH, capital E and small h. A positive OR potential indicates that the condition is oxidized. That means aerobic, oxygen is available. And negative OR indicates that the condition is reduced. That means anaerobic. The oxygen is not available. Most fruits and vegetables have an OR potential of minus 100 millivolts. What does it indicate? It indicates that most fruits and vegetables have reduced condition, means unavailability of oxygen. The foods have low oxidation reduction potential in their interior, that is inside them, but usually the OR potential is higher in the outer layers. The fresh plant foods and animal foods have a low and well poised OR potential in their interior. Now, why the fruits and the fresh animal foods have low OR potential in their interior? The reason lies in their composition. The composition of various foods have reducing agents. For example, there is ascorbic acid and different reducing sugars in plant foods, and sulfur containing amino acids are there in animal foods. These act as reducing agents. So the reducing agents in plant foods include ascorbic acid and different reducing sugars. The reducing sugar agents in animal foods include the sulfidyl groups of amino acids. Now, depending upon the OR potential of the food, the spoilage organisms will differ. For example, if we take meat, surface of the meat has slightly aerobic condition, slightly oxidized condition, because it is in contact with the oxygen. Air, in contact with the air. So the surface of the meat has slightly oxidized OR potential and it supports the growth of slime forming souring bacteria. While the interior of the meat is anaerobic in nature because the oxygen cannot penetrate easily to the inner part of the meat. The conditions remain anaerobic and it allows the growth of putrefactive degradation by anaerobic organisms. So, if we take meat as an example of food, then on the surface of the meat, the conditions are slightly aerobic, oxidized, and it allows the growth of slime forming souring bacteria. While the interior of the meat has anaerobic condition and it allows the putrefactive degradation by anaerobes. The OR potential of the food is affected by the processing mechanisms. For example, when we heat the food, when we boil the food, when we dry the food, when we roast the food, it alters the OR potential of the food. When the conditions are aerobic, the nutrients in the food are completely oxidized in presence of oxygen. It leads to formation of organic acids and the final products are carbon dioxide and water, CO2 and water. Clean, odorless end products are there, CO2 and water. These are the end products of complete oxidation in presence of oxygen. When the conditions are anaerobic, that means oxygen is not available, the nutrients are incompletely oxidized. This incomplete oxidation or putrefaction leads to formation of sulfur dioxide or ammonia like gases. And these gases give offensive odor to the food. So whenever there is aerobic oxidation, odorless gases are formed. Whenever there is anaerobic oxidation of food, offensive odor producing gases are formed. Whenever the microorganisms grow in the food, the growth of microorganisms also can change the OR potential of the food. For example, initially the food has some amount of oxygen. It will allow the growth of aerobic microorganisms. Aerobic microorganisms will grow in that food. They will consume the oxygen and will make the condition microaerobic. Means oxygen is available but at a lower concentration. In this condition, microaerophilic organisms will grow. They will consume the oxygen and will make the condition anaerobic. In anaerobic condition, anaerobic microorganisms will grow or facultative microorganisms will grow. Facultative microorganisms can grow in all the conditions. This is about the OR potential of the food. We have seen what determines the OR potential of the food. 4 things: characteristic OR potential of the food, the poising capacity of the food, the atmospheric oxygen surrounding the food, and the access to this atmospheric oxygen by the food. Most fresh plant and animal foods are reduced in nature. They have reducing agents in them. And the OR potential may be changed because of processing of the food. The next important factor that determines food as a substrate is nutrient content of the food. Nutrient requirements of microorganisms, if we see, we can categorize them broadly as water, source of energy, source of nitrogen and carbon, vitamins and growth factors, and minerals. Water requirement we have already discussed. Water requirement we have discussed as available water or AW, moisture content, and how it is an important factor to determine food as a substrate for microorganisms. Source of energy, if we see, the commonest source of energy is carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are of different types: monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. That is from simple carbohydrates to complex carbohydrates. Many of the microorganisms are heterotrophic in nature, and therefore their source of carbon also acts as source of energy. A limited number of microorganisms can use fats. If not carbohydrates, then proteins, organic acids, and esters can be used as a source of energy. There are a few organisms that have specific hydrolytic activities. For example, proteolytic activity is the activity to hydrolyze proteins. Amylolytic activity is the ability to hydrolyze starch. Cellulolytic activity is the ability of organism to degrade cellulose. Lipolytic activity is the organism's ability to degrade lipids. But these activities are not associated with all types of microorganisms, and therefore the organisms having these specific hydrolytic activities can grow in that particular foods. One more type of organisms important are pectin hydrolyzing organisms, because pectin is present in fruits, in fruit coverings. So if the organism has ability to hydrolyze pectin, they can spoil the fruits. Not only the type of energy food, but its concentration is also important. For example, as all of us know, sugars are the simplest source of carbon and energy. But not only the sugar, but at what concentration this sugar is present in the food, that is also important. Because if the concentration of sugar increases, it will cause increase in osmotic pressure. And this increase in osmotic pressure is not suitable for growth of many bacteria, many microorganisms. This will inhibit the growth of organisms then. Therefore, not only the presence of sugar, but the concentration of sugar is also important. Now, the foods for growth. In case of growth foods, we mainly consider carbon and nitrogen sources. Again, I will repeat here that many of the organisms that grow in the food are heterotrophic in nature. Their source of carbon also acts as source of energy. They use organic compounds as a carbon source. And the major things that are used as carbon sources are carbohydrates. Microorganisms attack these carbohydrates and carry out fermentations. When the carbohydrates are fermented, it leads to production of acids. Acids are formed means the pH is lowered. And at this low pH, which is acidic pH, growth of proteolytic organisms is inhibited. Proteins are also hydrolyzed by proteolytic microorganisms. This proteolytic activity is associated with many molds and a few bacterial genera and very few yeasts have this ability to degrade proteins. Some amino acids are inhibitory. Although we consider that the amino acids are simplest sources of proteins, they may be inhibitory for growth of certain microorganisms, especially when the amino acids are in pure form. Each type of microorganism has a range of foods in which they can grow. For example, bacteria has a narrow range. The range of foods is very high in molds. What it means? It means that molds can grow in a variety of foods. Molds can grow in a large range of foods. The next nutrient requirements include vitamins and growth factors. Depending on the vitamin and growth factor requirements, we divide the organisms into two categories: auxotrophs and prototrophs. Auxotrophs are the organisms that have lost their ability to produce one or more growth factors. So they are dependent organisms. Suppose an organism is auxotrophic for vitamin B12, it will not grow unless and until ready-made vitamin B12 is available to it. Prototrophs are the organisms that have the ability to synthesize all the growth factors on their own. Many foods are rich in some vitamins, but they may lack or they may be low in some vitamins. For example, meat is rich in vitamin B, but fruits are low in vitamin B. Fruits are rich in ascorbic acid. Egg white contains biotin, but in addition, it also contains avidin. Thiamine, pantothenic acid, folic acid, ascorbic acid, these are certain vitamins that are very, very sensitive to heat. So whenever we heat the food during processing, these are lost, these are destroyed. So processing of food reduces the vitamin content. The processing that mainly affects is heating, boiling, roasting, and sometimes long-term storage also. When the food is stored for a long term, it reduces the vitamin content. The next important nutrient requirement will be minerals. Minerals are required in a very low concentration and usually these are present in the food. But some essential minerals may be tied up, they may be lacking, or they may be totally unavailable in some foods. For example, milk has insufficient concentration of iron. The next important intrinsic factor that determines food as a substrate for microorganisms is presence of inhibitory substances or inhibitory constituents in the food, or we can call it as presence of antimicrobial constituents in the food. Antimicrobial or inhibitory means what? These are the components produced by one microorganism and that inhibit the growth of other microorganisms. Such antimicrobial constituents may be present in the food as its inherent composition, or they may be developed there because of growth of microorganisms in that particular food, or they may be developed during the processing. We will see the examples. Some of the antimicrobial components present in the food. Lactanins and anticoliform factors are present in the milk. These are inhibitory components. Lysozyme is present in egg white. Benzoic acid is an inhibitory component present in berries. Some of the inhibitory components are developed by microorganisms during their growth in the food. The examples would be acids, alcohols, peroxides, antibiotics, and nisin. The organisms use sugars, ferment the sugars, and produce acids. Acids inhibit the growth of various microorganisms. In the same way, they may produce alcohols, they may produce peroxides, they may produce antibiotics and nisin-like components. These are developed because of growth of microorganisms and they will prevent the growth of other microorganisms. Some of the inhibitory components are developed during processing of the food. If lipid containing food is oxidized, then it produces inhibitory component. Browning of sugars occurs when we heat the sugars. Furfuryls are produced, or hydroxymethyl furfuryls are produced, that are inhibitory to other microorganisms. The next important factor among the intrinsic factors will be biological structure of the food or the outer structure of the food. This biological structure of the food or outer structure of the food acts as a barrier for entry and damage of the food by spoilage microorganisms. It is the hurdle, it is the barrier, and prevents the entry of spoilage microorganisms. For example, eggs have shell surrounding them. Various fruits and vegetables have a skin covering. Fish has scales. Various nuts have shell, tough shell, and there is a layer of fat over the meat. This will not easily allow the entry of microorganisms in the food. But whenever such food is subjected for skinning, chopping, peeling, or freezing, this barrier is damaged or it is removed, and then the microorganisms can easily gain entry into the food. They can easily enter the food. These barriers also determine the kind of microorganisms that may enter. They determine the rate and course of spoilage of that particular food also. If we see an example, intact fruit will have skin surrounding them, so it will not be readily spoiled by the spoilage organism. But if you slice the fruit, or if you cut the fruit, or if you peel the fruit, then the interior of the fruit is exposed and the microorganisms easily get access to the fruit, and therefore they may grow in there and cause spoilage. Some of the inhibitory components, although they are associated with the food or produced during the processing or produced because of growth of microorganisms, may also be inactivated or degraded by other type of microorganisms. So they degrade these inhibitory components and they grow in that particular food. So this is about inhibitory components, and this is about the intrinsic factors of the food that determine food as a substrate for microorganisms. Thank you very much. We will see the remaining extrinsic factors in the next video. Thank you.